Hi, everyone. Welcome to the session today. I'm Saurabhishwar Sen, Chief Mentor and Founder of Catalyst, extending a very, very warm welcome to all of you to be a part of the Catalyst Knowledge Transfer series, which since the pandemic began in March 2020, we have been presenting to our student community, to our stakeholders, the different perspectives from the social sector, focusing on a lot on the career opportunities which remains untapped and to be explored by students, working professionals, school and college aspirants who can consider the social sciences as a chosen career path. To start the session, a little bit about Catalyst. Since 2011, we at Catalyst have been focused towards mentoring, guiding, hand-holding social science aspirants to pursue career choices, career opportunities in the different sectors of development. We have supported students with guidance, with mentoring for pursuing academic opportunities in the social science institutes in India and abroad. And over the last 2 years, very significantly, I must admit, amidst all the socioeconomic embargo, amidst all the challenges which life threw to us rather, the silver lining has been constantly this support, love, and inspiration that we have kept on receiving from all of you. So I want to thank everyone at the onset of the session to support the Catalyst Knowledge Transfer series, which very interestingly actually hits an important milestone of 50 sessions since March 2020 today. And I can't be more delighted that on the 50th session for the Catalyst Knowledge Transfer series, I actually have the opportunity to present to all of you Kusumika Ghosh, who, along with being an alumni of Catalyst, has been one of the most proactive, and I use the word very consciously, researcher, academician, scholar, student, professional, mentor, research guide, strategist, campaigner for career choices and opportunities in social science. Kusumika is a doctoral researcher at the School of Law and Government, Dublin City University, Ireland, and a master's degree holder from Peace and Conflict Studies from Tata Institute of Social Sciences. Kusumika had been a former research associate on conflict transformation and peace building in Northeast India with the Northeastern Social Research Center, Guwahati, and the Partition Museum, Amritsar. Kusumika has been a former researcher with the Forced Migration Desk at the prestigious Calcutta Research Group. Kusumika has co-authored a book, The Landscape of Conflicts and Peace in the Northeast, Role of Religion. And in fact, as we speak, Kusumika has also published her second book, which we will keep on hold for the time being. And maybe Kusumika can discuss that in the session if she wants to, which again has a very interesting context of the role of women. Kusumika otherwise has extensively worked as a capacity building mentor with us at Catalyst, conducting workshops across colleges in Kolkata. Kusumika, since the time we locked down, she rose up to the occasion and helped us steer through the different challenges that were posed to us in terms of training and mentoring students for the social science by hosting back-to-back 2 years certificate course on research in social sciences completely on an online format. And I'm very happy to also see some of the participants from that course Shabnam be with us today. And before I move ahead and pass on the baton to Kusumika, one final thought which I would like to share with all of you is that um, use this interactive platform to understand, question, and critically estimate the way you can apply yourself into the domain of social science. Kusumika's been one of the scholars whom we are aware of, who has constantly adapted, improvised her stance, her approach. And every time, we conduct a session with her, there is always a lot to learn. So like how I am also keen to know and learn more from her, I would request all of you to take the next 45 minutes or to an hour or so and really understand how peace and conflict studies is truly the harbinger of the much required harmony for developing our society. Kusumika, thank you so much for being a part of the session. And I would like to pass on the session to you. Thank you.
Thank you so much, sir. Okay, first of all, disclaimer, this is like a home setup meeting stuff. You'll see my brother running behind like a mouse sometimes. You'll see people trying to enter. I'll try my best to not let them speak very loudly and stuff, but in case that happens, just please excuse it. But otherwise, this is a freewheeling session. It was written in your thing. I'm not here to hold a lecture. I'm not going to preach about stuff. What we are here for is a session of question answering. I understand that a lot of you might be having a lot of questions. I know I did when I was applying. And Sauraveshwar sir was pivotal for us back then, just like guiding us. But what we didn't have back then is like sessions like these where we could, because online wasn't a big thing back then. So we didn't have people who could just come to us and say, oh, we did this course and it happened like this. We would get phone numbers of our seniors. And then I remember Seoshi, one of our back seniors, being that anchor for me, who I directed 1,000 questions to. But now you guys have it like happening on a platform. So use this space. I am going to talk for like a short while. I will talk for maybe 20, 25 minutes tops. And then I'm going to let it be to you guys about asking whatever you want to ask. No question is a bad question unless you're like asking the question with an intention to disrupt. And if you are, then it's okay because I have done that and I think I'll be able to handle that. Right? So don't be afraid of speaking up. Also, I finished my master's in 2018, right? It's already been more than 3.5 years. And if I tell you that I remember everything about the syllabus, that'll be a lie. But I remember what I learned crystal clear, like as clear as day. And those are not just theoretical lessons that I took from it, but are actually perspectives, life views, opinions that now shapes every part of my work. And in our country, we have this tendency to undermine social sciences and saying that you don't really know what kind of work you're going to do or what you're going to get out of it. And I am not here to brag or tell you that we are better than other streams or anything like that. But there are a lot of things that you can do out of doing an interdisciplinary master's in a social science field. Even if your country doesn't give you the most promising scenario right now, if we, I don't know, in our early 20s, like me, I'm already in my mid 20s, but some of you guys might be still in your early 20s, starting with your master's, planning for a master's, or even if you're older than that, if we don't take up something that can change that scenario, then what's the point in complaining, right? Then what's the point in just saying that, oh, our country will never give us the backdrop to do this? I mean, let's be the backdrop and then see what happens. Then let's not allow the next generation to say things that we are saying, that there is no grant for research. Okay, people don't allow critical thinking in the country. Nobody is going to allow critical thinking because the point of critical thinking is that you're questioning people, you're making them uncomfortable, you're making them justify what they're doing, and nobody likes doing that. Okay, no form of authority will like critical thinking, and if you think anybody is going to be supportive of that, then no, that doesn't happen. Any form of authority by nature, for people who have studied political science here, I don't know if any of you have, We used to study concepts of power and authority and legitimacy and all that. And the nature of authority is that it doesn't like being questioned. Okay, it will give you directions and you have to follow it. The nature of critical thinking is you question that authority, right? You put up statements like speak truth to power. You often get carried away a little bit, at least in your youth. But I think that is sort of the point of your youth, that you get a little bit carried away so that you can spend the rest of your life tempering it down. But if you begin being so tempered, then I don't know if your old age will have a lot to tell. That is not me inspiring you to go out there and get shot at or something like that. Okay, I'm just talking in terms of your education. I'm saying that social sciences does not have to be, sure, it can be any discipline, it can be anything. You don't have to do a master's in peace and conflict studies. We are what, there are 3 centers in the whole country which offers a master's like this. This is one, there is one in Jamia, but the Nelson Mandela Center for Peace, but that program has a total different focus. And then I think Sikkim University offers a diploma, but that is about it of what we have of this course in this country. But now I'm doing my PhD outside, and I'll tell you, peace and conflict studies is one of the most popular courses in social sciences outside. Okay, I am doing my PhD from the School of Law and Government, and most of the colleagues I have there have a master's in peace and conflict studies. I used to think my education is exotic. Okay, and in this country, like when I said, oh, I'm just studying PACS, it's peace and conflict, everyone would ask me, okay, what does that entail? What do you study? What will you do after that? There I go and I say, okay, I have a master's in peace and conflict studies. 7 out of 10 people tell me, so do I. Nice. And I'm offended. But I'm trying to tell you that the field is not as small as they try to portray to us here at this point. So if you're skeptical about having a career, and for me, I don't think it's a limit, even if there is nothing in this country right now for us, because that just means the entire playing field is open. Okay, that just means there is no set niche for you right now. You can create it anywhere. You can be media practitioners, you can be academicians, you can be researchers, you can be teachers, you can be, I don't know, a documentary filmmaker, you can be a government advisor, strategic planner, any possible career that you can think about. Because this degree, what it's going to do is it's going to influence the way you think. So whatever you do for the rest of your life will have a tinge of that. At least, like, I have not been in touch with the batches of PACs after the ones that graduated in 2019. And that is my bad. I was saying earlier in this session that we used to take pride in how cohesive we are. And we still have these mailing lists, TISPACs 1, TISPACs 2, TISPACs 3. And we'd always mail each other on those, and it would reach the particular batch. And we would have reunions and seniors all over our place. And even now, whenever we go back to Guwahati, we make sure that we visit the campus. Like, I will be going back for fieldwork in a few months. I'll be going next month actually, and I know I'll definitely go and see the people who are there. So it is a cohort. But more than that, if you're standing there today and if you're asking me what will happen to me after PACS, right? You have to enter this knowing that you're not doing an MBA. You will not be offered a job package straight out of college. That is not going to happen. Okay. There is a placement cell and they will bring some people, but peace and conflict studies is very broad, so broad that people who come looking for managers will probably not be looking for you. Okay. I was the placement coordinator for a year and I didn't even sit for placements. And I'm just being up straight honest here, because a lot of people, it is a substantial amount of money unless you have the Government of India scholarship or any other scholarships, right? And you might be expecting that after doing this master's, why shouldn't I get a cushy, job, like straight out of this and straight into an MNC or straight into something that gives me a lot of money in the beginning? It is possible to earn money straight out of university. I took my first job 2 months, 2.5 months after I finished my degree, right? And it paid peanuts, but it let me write a book. Okay. And the peanuts it paid actually was enough peanuts for me to survive, to pay my rent, to eat, to go by, and to not be broke and ask money from people. Okay. It was enough for that. But I did that for a year. I quit that and I went into a bunch of internships, some of which were not paying me. Pro tip, if you're doing an internship that is not paying you, please do it from home. Okay. Do it while you're not paying rent and do it while you're not having other living expenditures. So do not do an unpaid internship where you have to travel to another city and they will not give you your rent or anything. That doesn't make sense. That is top class exploitation, even if that organization is very big. And now you guys have the option of doing remote work. So if an internship opportunity is there for that, take it, but make sure it's remote work, right? So I did like two, three internships, and the third one landed me into my second job, which was with the Calcutta Research Group. It paid me better. I was also in Kolkata, but the research bit of it was not as intensive as I did in NESRC. NESRC was like what I learned as research in college, university combined. I learned much more in that 1 year of job. What I'm trying to tell you here is that I did my master's and I spent 2 years. I got through the PhD in 2020 May, right? That's when I got the offer. So that is like 2 years between completing my master's and getting for a PhD. And I come from a family where you do degree after degree after degree, and if you stop, it's considered bad. Okay, so if you have a lag year, how do you explain that in your CV? And all of these problems are there. But now, and that is what we also do in a course called the Certificate Course in Research at Catalyst. You're one of our participants here, Shabnam. And what we learned from that is doing degrees after degrees without having any real world exposure, without having any work experience will not push you very far. Okay. So when you try to measure the Jobscape, remember that there is a difference between doing a degree in a social science or humanities stream and a technical stream. Okay, a technical stream gives you the skills. So if you're an engineer, if you're a, I don't know, electrician, if you're acquiring any of those skills, a chef, okay, who can get out of that and use that skill to get employed. And a technical training is also that of a doctor, lawyer, all of these things that give you a license straight out of your school to practice something. Okay, you are not coming out of that, you are not coming out of this master's degree with that. Do not go in with those kind of expectations. You are going in for education, you're going in for exposure, and that is solid. Like, I'm not even joking. The contacts you'll make, the field you'll see, okay, the experiences you'll gain, you will be capitalizing on that for your entire life. I know, I still do. You will study things that you have not thought of before. You will, so now peace and conflict studies is also being a little restructured, and they are putting more emphasis on peace building. And you might be very curious as to what is peace building. In our country, it doesn't sound so big, right? And even when we talk about peace and conflict studies, many of us are probably here thinking of international relations. Okay, and let us tell you at the outset that there are two streams where peace and conflicts like splits. Okay, one is, they often call it peace and security studies. That is the IR side. That will deal with state as the primary actor of things. Okay, and that will be the status perspective, and that will teach you how to use which law, which what, and that is ideal if you're looking for, say, a career in the government's diplomacy, okay, or things like that. What you will study here is the other side, which is the more sociological part, which means what? You are looking away from the state and you're looking at elements of the society and you're seeing them in relation to the state. There you see the world in relation, like there, the center of your world is the state. Here, the center of your world is the world and the state in relation to it. Okay, so you actually see the state as a performer. Yeah, Sunana, sure. It is not like, it is not a question where you'll say, oh, what are the two streams of packs and how it happens. I'm just telling you, usually in the courses, there are two types of focus. One is peace and security studies, which is mostly a status perspective, but that is not what you get in the TIS offered one. Okay, you get a more society-based thing. You get psychology of conflict. Okay, you study the memory part of it. You study what is violence. You truly understand that violence is not just what you see, but there is also something called structural violence. Okay, which poverty is the prime example of structural violence. What it does is it gives you education, and till today I feel like there's a huge gap in our country in understanding what is education and what is training. Okay, there is training to train you to land you into the job market where you don't even question what the job is. You're just learning how to do the job, right? And on the other hand, there is education that tells you, okay, whatever you do, These things are going to form the core of it. Okay. And then you take that and you use it in whatever you choose to do. Some of us stay in academia, some of us go into media, some of us do advocacy, some of us are in activism. I know my friends who are right now prepping for UPSC. So it's not like once you do peace and conflict, you cannot work with the government or anything like that. Okay. By all means, I think you should. I mean, if you can, because you need people who will think progressively, who will put more emphasis on education, on the environment, on protection of what is important, okay, on thinking about a better world tomorrow. And that just doesn't happen by protesting and resisting from outside. You need to be in the position of policy making. Policy making is another career that you can take from this course. Okay. What I'm telling you here is you are going to study things that you didn't even pay much attention to before. Like, what is conflict? Okay. It's not just a fight between two people. It is not just India going into a war with Pakistan. Conflict can be at any level, and what you learn are very important skills of how to resolve that conflict. Okay. And you learn it for yourself. Like, there is an interpersonal level training that happens. And then you learn about things like negotiation, mediation. I've held workshops on these with Catalyst all the time. And there were like large numbers of participants who showed up to do this. So um, go into this course expecting to be equipped with very important skills. First of all, reading and writing. We all think we can read, okay? But academic reading is something different. The way you find how to read what you want to read, the kind of material you consult, okay, the way you can read most effectively. Writing, oh my god, PAX makes you write like crazy. Okay, we used to have like 2 3 assignments in a week and submissions like insane, and you do response papers and you do all sorts of feedback things. You write all the time, and that's how you learn how to write in academia. And this is a skill that's going to stay with you for your life. Okay. You learn how to network. There are lots of, like, you choose what kind of field organization you'll work with. You go for your induction, you know people there. And personally, I feel like it exposes you to a part of the country which usually we don't talk very much about, at least in our part of the country. And we don't understand the nuances of what India's Northeast is, and what people there are asking for, and what, you know, it's almost like we are unaware about citizens of our own country. And there, when you go, you understand your own part also better. Okay, wherever you're from. Like, there is a reservation for people from the Northeast in the whole Guwahati campus, but there are also a bunch of us who will come from other parts of the country. And when we come there, it's a very interesting eclectic mix of learning about different lifestyles, of learning about different struggles, of perceiving, I don't know, things like administration, perceiving what we see as very normal and going there and looking at it and being like, okay, maybe that is not normal. Like, what is happening? Things change. Go into this course expecting to form strong opinions, okay? And that opinion will not be pushed down your throat. I remember we would have classes where our professors would just make us stand in the room and be like, okay, so this is the topic, and we are going to take votes on the motion today. So whoever is extremely in favor of it, stand in that corner. If you feel like you're in the middle, sort of go there. So that'd be a grade of like 1 to 10. And I remember that time there was an issue and capital punishment was being discussed. Okay. And I was in first year. And I was very pro capital punishment back then. Okay. And I remember I was the only person in class who was standing in the 10th grid. And Professor Barbara was like, hey, there's the extremist in my class. I still remember hearing this. But once I finished 2 years there, it is not just about reading what I read, but the movies we watched, the conversations we had. Okay, we had these amazing things with bonfire and hanging out at teachers' places and just, chilling with them, talking to them, very free, very open. We would talk, study stuff like they were not studying at all. Okay, just like discussions, just like, oh, I read this in this reading, but then this is not what happens here. So what did you find in connection to this? You start applying theory in your life. Okay, and that is, it can be two things. It can either be very disillusioning, like you see and you're like, okay, the theory says such great things, but in practice you don't see it. Or you can start seeing reality and being like, okay, if we change these things, maybe we'll go closer to the theory. Okay, and that depends on personal stance. But once you go into packs, you definitely come out transformed, I think. And that happens because you continuously get guest lecturers, people come in to talk to you all the time. You get, I remember we had a module on, this was probably reconciliation. And if there are any present student of PAX here, they'll know. And reconciliation is one of the most difficult things I have read about in my life. I will not say learn because I think I still struggle with it. Because reconciliation means the bad thing that had to happen has happened. Okay. And you know who has done the bad thing. There is a clear victim, there is a clear person who has inflicted that on the victim. Okay. And in spite of that, you need to move on with your life. And even if you kill the person who has done that to you, many people don't achieve the sense of, liberty that they expected from it. So how will they go on? And we used to do all sorts of case studies like the South African Truth and Reconciliation Commission, the Chilean Commission. And I remember in reconciliation for 3 days we had this amazing guest lecturer from Nagaland. His name was Dr. Akam Longchat, and Akam actually runs a newspaper in Dimapur, and he's very like cutting edge and all those. And he came and he made us do things like stand in the middle of the road and just give us a theme, and literally the road, because this Guwahati campus used to be in Uzan Bazaar back then, which was a neighborhood and not the campus that you guys have now. And we had to stand in the middle of the road and he would give us a word like fear or confrontation. And you just stand there and for 30 seconds you talk about it to the person who's coming back from the bazaar, to the rickshaw man who's going by. You just openly stand there and talk. So many of us were so anxious about it. But once it was done, you feel just relieved in a strange way. And now that I am out of the degree and many of my friends have gone into education, not in the way that I have gone in research academics, but they have gone as curriculum developers and high school teachers and people who work with things like Apni Shala, where they're trying to work with students with a more empathetic approach than a strictly syllabus based thing. And they come up and use these methods of teaching. Okay, and they have amazing results with these. And I used to think that we never had this at school level, but my God, look at these people. They are ones who came out of this, and now they are applying it on people outside. And look how those children are transformed. Teach for India will have so many candidates from this. Okay, after the pass out. Apni Shala will have so many. Like any teaching, my best friend Shoma Porna, she is also a graduate of this public policy from Hyderabad, and right now she works with a thing called Lead, where they develop a whole curriculum where CBSE and ICSE fall short, and they help students get through those things better. And she literally writes books and designs the whole thing. Okay, so what I'm saying is your master degree in peace and conflict or your master degree in policy doesn't only mean that you will have one type of career. That is the benefit of interdisciplinary studies, which our country is yet to understand properly. Okay. And this gives you that with a huge brand name. The brand name that you carry with yourself when you pass out of this and you go outside, we are recognized by the name. Okay. And when I was sitting for my interview at Dublin, and they were asking where I'm from, and I said this, and they were like, okay, we know this, and this does very good field work, but you guys need to work more on your theory and stuff. I didn't expect them to notice. Okay, but they do. So this is truly an international level brand that you're getting with yourself, and for good reason. Okay, there are problems inside, and we always point to those. But the truth is that the education level that is delivered here is still more than, I don't know, I can't think of any university that compares when it comes to cutting edge stuff like this. Nowadays, a lot of them are coming up. Like, I like Ashoka's curriculum. I like what they're trying to pull up, but I feel like there's a lack of grounding in them, in the sense the way their courses are structured and the way the course fees are made. A lot of people can't go there. Whereas in this, your class will always be mixed with different economic groups. If you're in the hostel, I had 6 roommates and we all were from different economic backgrounds. We were 7 girls in one room, and it was probably the best experience of my life, right? Because I saw life from all of those parts of India and all of those economic backgrounds and all of those food habits. It was so much fun. So I, at this point, I'm just probably blabbing. So if you have questions, I guess we could start. And you can ask me anything. It doesn't have to be just about facts. It can be about your career in general. or maybe looking for something in research or anything really? Do you have anything? If you don't, or perhaps like I should wait before I say this, I also wanted to say that not a lot of people apply for PACs in the first go because they don't understand what it is about. And most of us who apply are from political science, and we apply thinking that it is going to give us a direction of sitting for IAS, UPSC exams and all. That is a perfect possibility. Okay, it happens because you have a syllabus where you study bits of sociology, where you study history, where you study politics, and this is part of the curriculum. You study the peace building, the conflict, the violence, the media advocacy, the psychological dimensions, and all of those in addition to those. Okay, so those are. Did I freeze? Hi, can everyone see me? Okay, okay. I think I unfroze. Thanks. Right. So it is a perfect possibility that you'll be able to apply for government exams after this. Okay, there is nothing stopping you from that, and you will study the basics of, like I was saying, history, politics, sociology, things that are needed for your papers, and a lot of us are aspirants for that. And other than that, even if you're aiming for a career in journalism, if you're aiming for a career in definitely research and academia, this course is research heavy. Our dissertation carries the highest number of credits in the whole campus, right? We have to write the longest ones. We do the most amount of theoretical reading, whereas the other courses on the TIS campus have more fieldwork elements, especially the social work ones. And that is just how they are geared. The social science ones, which are peace and conflict, environment, the sociology people, and the labor studies people, we are a little more bookish and we do our fieldwork, but it's like books and fieldwork, whereas social work does this much fieldwork and this much books. Okay, so choose accordingly, choose what you'd like to do. But if you're asking me about my experience, this degree has propelled me at least 3 years ahead in my career than what doing anything else would have done. And I am doing exactly what I wanted to do, which I wasn't entirely, I didn't see a map ahead of what I'm supposed to do after this, after this, after this. I knew where my interest is. I'm interested in gender. And after I came to peace and conflict studies, I realized I'm also interested in peace building. And then I went ahead, I did some jobs which gave me some more ideas, some internships. And now I'm doing a PhD in the School of Law and Government. And this is the benefit of interdisciplinary studies. I can literally be in any of these schools. Okay. I can be in sociology, I can be in law and government, I can be in politics, I can be in, if I choose to, I can also be in schools like psychology if I went for like violence. Okay, and if I went for psychology of violence and stuff like that, I could be in that. I could be in memory studies, I could be in history. Okay, so any of these work. And while interdisciplinary studies can be a little confusing at your bachelor's level, at your master's level, it is pretty good and pretty solid. Okay, I think that is all about like what I have for now. If you have questions, please shoot.
Right. So Kusumika, I think before anyone asks a question, I want to just understand based on some of the popular queries which really come out. And I think you have cleared quite a few of them. Firstly, um, mentioning very critically that peace and conflict studies is not about international relations. It's not about like like a diplomacy program. Um, so that's quite clear. The second thing that you also highlighted at this moment is how the application of peace and conflict studies can be spread across a variety of domains, right? Now, if I ask you a question that to pursue peace and conflict studies, what is the mindset that you think is actually tested maybe during an interview or otherwise, like a student coming into peace and conflict studies from a background, what could be the foundational level knowledge or skills, if possible, that they should possess or they should exhibit when it comes to wanting to pursue the program?
Right. I think nothing except adaptability. Like I have in my cohort, there were people from all sorts of backgrounds, like people who had a diploma in retail management, people who have never studied after their class 12 and did their bachelor's from open education where they never actually attended classes, people who were real time fleeing conflict and sought shelter in India and they came for the course. Okay. People from, I have a geologist friend who was also in our class. Okay, and so you can be from anywhere, literally. That I think applies to all of this. Like when you come in, we have this thing called the foundation courses. And FCs can be boring and awfully tiring to sit through for people like us who have had like straight cut education for years because they are repeating those same things. But it is really a leveling ground, right? So you come in from wherever, and then everyone gets those basic lessons in history, sociology, economics, environment science, Northeast India, all of those, and it is compulsory for everyone, right? So all you need to have is an adaptable mindset, that here more than learning you'll probably have to do a lot of unlearning. So just the mental space to accommodate that, and I don't know, the desire to have a lot of fun, I guess, because I don't remember having as much fun as I did in that degree. Like the deadlines would be so crippling and everything, but we would have we would watch movies in class a lot, and not movies for that kind of movies, but we'd watch a lot of documentaries. And I saw some of the most engaging ones that I've ever seen. And then at night, we'd decide to meet up somewhere and just, discuss those over drinks. And this used to be a lot of fun, and you learn outside the classroom as well. I think most of the learning happens outside the classroom anyway. So if you're applying for PACs, all you need to know is yes, be prepared to meet a lot of deadlines, be prepared to have be awake at nights writing when your roommate is sleeping because they're doing a different course, because you will probably have to do that. But other than that, if you're just adaptable and open to changing your mindset, you'll get along just fine. And they choose people in cohorts picking like that, where you will be different from the rest, so that the people can benefit the most from each other. Like I know my batch was carefully curated where no two people were exactly similar in their backgrounds. So I guess that's it.
Right, thank you. The other question, Kusumika, which I hear a lot from aspiring students is that when it comes to TIS Guwahati, um, we are all aware that the strategic location of TIS Guwahati at Guwahati, Assam, also has been done with a specific intention, right? To intervene into the space of social development, research work, support for that region uh, in a focused way. How do you see peace and conflict studies, like for people who are, say, could be from uh, a completely different demography altogether, which you also highlighted at the start of the session? Uh, to what extent is it so that they need to be aware of the northeastern states if it really matters? Like I
No,
keep
it's
hearing this question
right.
a lot from aspirants.
It's perfect if you're not, because that means you're going as an open book and you're not going based on preconceived notions. So when you enter that, like for instance, and I have family in Assam, okay, so it's disgraceful, but I didn't know that most of the Assamese people do not carry the Tibeto-Burman features that are typical of other indigenous communities in the Northeast, right? That most Assamese people look like us mainlanders. And when I went there, I didn't know this. I had to learn it there. So the only suggestion is, do not ask what you think might be offensive, and instead just listen, observe your surroundings and pick up. Like it's always interesting and enthralling to experience a new region, place where you don't know anything. So expecting people to know about Northeastern politics or about Northeast before they go. Suppose they're applying for the EESD program, the environment ecology, doesn't mean they have to be aware of, what are the disasters that are happening there or what are the risks and vulnerabilities. But if you are applying, then, and if you have the time, I mean, it is always a good point to make an impression in an interview that if there is a huge issue going on there, okay, or if there is something that you can just look up a little bit and say that, okay, I have managed to read a report or two about this, and this is what I got from it, but I'm hoping that my exposure to this region will help me learn more. I think in the interview, if you just can exhibit a desire to learn and pick up, I think that's more important than any other thing. Like, they are not interested in what you have mugged up so far. They're not there to test you on your knowledge, but really your aptitude, at least from what I experienced.
Right. Any other questions from anyone? Like, we also have participants from present batches of peace and conflict studies. So
Right.
if you have any question, feel free to ask. This is a session which is supposed to highlight the application of peace and conflict studies in a broad context, the way Kusumika is putting it out. So Aditya, Kothakoli, Lawrence, Payal, Pranay did ask some questions. Shravya, Sunayana, feel free if anything that's on your mind, specific or around the program that you would like to know. You can definitely use your microphone. Thank you.
I will, in the meantime, also put my email ID in the chat box that if you can't think of anything right now, but you'd like to ask me later, you can do that. And it's not compulsory that you have to ask questions. I mean, it doesn't mean that you need to. But while applying, if you are considering this course, then I'm sure if you're taking the training at Catalyst, then sir would have made you aware that the form will have those preferential listings of how you have to pick which course goes on top, which course goes in middle. If you don't, I suggest reaching out to sir. And so if you are planning to take this course, while applying for this, it is also important to see what course gives how much cutoff and how that affects your chances of getting into the institute. And peace and conflict studies does not ask for a very high cutoff, which is on the plus side, right? So if you are not sure about what exactly you'd like to apply for, but you'd like to get into a course that will give you, a more circular learning and will be good for your CV, I guess. I mean, it's a very blunt way of putting it. But if you have a master's in peace and conflict studies in your CV, it is definitely a conversation starter for any job, any prospect that you're applying for later, right? So you can consider this. The website has a lot of information. The current students are here. And just reach out to people and ask when you're filling this, right? But I think otherwise we are pretty set.
Right. Absolutely, Kusumika. Just one point which
Yeah,
comes to
yeah,
my
yeah.
mind, which I am also a little curious to understand, that this is the course, Kusumika, through which you actually went on to co-author a book, um,
Absolutely.
and it's not just one book, but you have also published a second one. Um,
Right,
you have worked in projects like Partition Museum, which
right.
I have uh, heard from you, which is truly intriguing in the context of the history and its application. I mean,
Right.
and it was much before that we got to hear about the partition at an Independence Day speech. But otherwise, I would just like to know from your end that just for the benefit of our aspirants, why do you
Right.
think that archiving these historical aspects, putting it forward to our people, right, through your book, how significant are they in the context of development? Because we keep on hearing
Right.
this question a lot. How important is your past to
Right.
understand how to go ahead? If
Right.
you would like to put few words on that note.
This is, I don't even have to say anything there. Remember that quote that those who do not know their history are doomed to repeat it. So the point is, even in packs, you'll be doing papers like memory, history, conflict, and all of those, where you learn the importance of memory. And just yesterday, I think I was seeing a social media post by the one of the top German politicians, I think, not even academicians, where he was saying that a government that tries to erase the memory is not a government based on legitimacy, right? Because that is a country with a Nazi past. And if you go to Germany, you'll see that they are actually commemorizing that in statues, in museums, in places where you can revisit that past. And not because they are trying to base their policies now of that, but they are trying to remind themselves how not to be. So I think the benefit of studying very gory past, very like unpleasant history, especially history that hasn't been recorded formally. That's why we have things like oral history, which I was working with the Partition Museum on. I was working with recording oral history of partition survivors who came to this part. And I had such amazing interviews with people. Like the lady who heads the Oxford bookstores chain in Kolkata, Mena Bhagat. I also went to interview her, and we took some objects from her place, and they are Parsi, right? And they had these intense memories, not pleasant ones. But it's important to know so that something that happened back then is not entirely impossible that can be repeated now. It can repeat now, especially based on the fissures that we are expressing in the country, right? If you memorialize those, people look at that and people are like, oh my God, that ghastly thing happened and it cannot happen again, right? And you start, public starts holding the administration accountable that you cannot go down this path. There's been too much bloodshed, too much violence. So it is not a question of, philosophically remembering, oh, how things were or the golden glory or any of those, but mostly as a way to derive lessons from what has been. That is why the study of history is very important. And unfortunately, we don't study history like that in our country. Like we are always memorializing events, a timeline based thing. This came after this came after this, but not the lessons which came from those events. So I guess that's what memory studies does for you.
Right. That's a very interesting point. Thank you for highlighting. And I mean, that really is also equally empowering, I would say, to understand the past, as Kusumika puts out, so that we exactly know how to guard our future. I mean, and also like look forward to improvising at different levels. Um, one again, like I've been the one who's been asking all the questions, I believe, but that's because I this is like a collection that I keep uh, coming by, with our aspirants, with our students. The final question, Kusumika, from my end would be that last 1.5 years or more now, close to two since the pandemic started, peace and conflict studies, how do you see it now becoming more relevant or more directed? What could be the implications? You mentioned at the start that you are associated with the curriculum, improvisation at TIS itself. Um, and also, this was the same time, Kusumika, that you started your doctoral studies at Dublin. Um, as an application and extension of your peace and conflict studies background. So if you would like to present some final, again, silver linings with packs to the participants, which might be or may not be pandemic driven, if you can highlight some of those aspects for sure. Yeah.
Sure. First of all, as devastating as the pandemic is when it comes to accessing knowledge, it has somehow been a little beneficial for us in the sense, and it's a very selfish thing to say because the way people are getting hit by it is terrible, and most of us have also had personal encounters with this terrible thing. But what we have managed to attain is getting to listen to people from far and wide, okay, staying in one place. So I think the pandemic, and if you say the course that has most, been pushed the most by this pandemic would probably be public health, and for good reasons. And even when I remember last year at this time, my roommate Rinchen, who's now doing her PhD in public health, she was also holding one of these sessions with Catalyst on public health. And I remember her saying that this is not about learning about the medicine of it, but it is about learning the sociological part of it. And I think that is what all the courses at this will do. Like as a public health professional, your job will be to make the healthcare possibilities accessible to everyone and not just give those healthcare stuff, right? So same for peace and conflict studies. Your job is not just to solve the conflicts of the world. Your job is to also advocate, learn the rights-based language. For instance, the migrant crisis that was triggered off by this pandemic, the huge violation of human rights, right? Who comes? Of course, there are lawyers who will be equipped to take this to court and fight a case for it. But there is also a need for activists and advocates and people who will hold the people who are in power accountable, like people like RTI activists, okay, people, I don't know, politicians, civil society people, anybody who is willing to hold the authority, you know, accountable for how did this happen? How did so many people die? How did so many people get stuck here and there? According to our constitutional rights, this is what we are entitled to. Why are we not getting it? This, your degree equips you with. Okay, you learn to ask for your rights, you learn what your rights are, and you learn to apply them in places. And it is not just about yourself, but also others, right? So courses like peace and conflict studies, courses like public health, even courses like environment ecology and sustainable development, in these times, like it becomes even more paramount because the world is already heading towards an immense crisis. And that crisis is primarily health. But imagine the other things that it's setting off: unemployment, this kind of migrant crisis, no job security, no income security, no food security, right? That is where all these courses become more applicable. Like PAX is not out of the spectrum, it just contributes to this whole, way of asking for better things, of saying that, we are paying our taxes and you are our elected government and you are standing there representing us. We deserve this from you. You have to do it. So I think that is the job of perhaps every social science discipline. Pranay has a question. Could you please highlight the policy aspect from PAC's point of view? How can we apply our learning on this issue? Right. If you look at some of the policy think tanks in the world, right? I actually meant to show you guys some. I'll just share my screen for a quick second. Can you see my screen? Right. So this is the DCU Center for Institute of International Conflict Resolution and Reconstruction. And if you see this, this is also sort of a policy think tank. Okay, this is an academic space which funds research in fields of conflict resolution, social reconstruction, and all of these things, right? Your degree in peace and conflict studies would enable you to become members of things like this, can also enable you to become a paid assistant in things like this. I recently am about to join a center like this, which studies corruption. Okay, and they advertised for a research assistant position. I applied and I got it. I got it also because they saw my experience as research assistants, research associates, and all, and they knew I would know how to do a job within a deadline. This is another skill that PAX teaches you. You need to meet your deadlines on time. And this is called project management, or timely delivery of your stuff. And this is highly valued across your CV. So I remember for placement cell in TIS, we used to hold these capacity building sessions and we would say how to write your CV and how to do this. And you use a lot of big embellished words, but you definitely say one of your skills is timely delivery of your, achievables and things like that. So your policy aspect would be one think tanks. Okay, this is just one of these. I have another one on my screen. Just hang on. There is the Peace Research Institute Oslo. There is something called the International Peace Institute. I'll show you again. And all these does an amazing level of work. It's just that we don't know. Okay, check this out. And this is, remember, every institute will have their own political ideology, own inclinations. It's up to you to see which one you want to work for, blah, blah. But there is work across the world, okay, which tries to impact policy making of governments by deriving data from real society and then giving advice to the government that's saying that based on this data, We have understood that is the best way to go, and therefore go by it. Okay, so governments make policy based out of concrete facts, right? They do their own research. Government has its own wing for research R&D, and you as a policy think tank individual, your job is to substantiate that, sometimes criticize that, sometimes counter that. Okay, however you want to use it. Other than that, like I said, you can directly sit for exams and go for the policy making wing of the government if that is something you're into, right? But definitely policy making, policy improvising, okay, advocacy are big spin-offs from this department. You can definitely try that, right, Pranay? There is another message. Pursuing a course in strategic one. You're pursuing a course on strategic and foreign policy. Okay, all right. Where are you doing that from?
I'm doing it from Takshashila Institution.
Oh, Takshashila. Okay. Yeah. So definitely go ahead and do that. And if you have these additional certificate stuff with you, it is even better for you. Okay. Do not expect to start from like a top level where you'll be drafting policies, but expect to start with lower level paperwork where you learn how policy making works and how you are equipped to, add on to that or say, no, this is not working. You need to change this. And Takshashila and organizations like that often have a lot of influence when it comes to presentation, when it comes to see, the government functions through policies, right? Every single thing. Look at the West Bengal state government. We have what, 51 different schemes under our chief minister's name of all Konasri, Shornosri, any Shilposri, anything possible. And laugh as we might about it, these are coming from like civil service officers. Okay, and they are meant to improvise portions of the society, whether they're working or not, different. Then that is also for us to analyze. No? Go on the field and see how they are being implemented. Find your data, go present it. So policy is definitely a big part.
Yeah, I have another question. Can I?
Sure, go ahead.
Yeah, so there is also, I am doing another course from Nalsar, Hyderabad on humanitarian law. So
Right.
how can, sorry?
Go ahead.
Yeah. So how can we incorporate that in migration studies?
Humanitarian law is a huge part of migration studies. By migration studies, if you mean forced migration studies, right? So if you look at Calcutta Research Group's work, okay, and look at what they do at the Forced Migration Studies desk at CRG. They do a number of publications, they do a number of policy suggestions. Their projects are funded by a lot of important institutions across. If your CV has a degree in peace and conflict studies, a certificate course in policy, and a certificate course in humanitarian law, you are ideally suited for, if you want to stay in academia, you're ideally suited for schools like law and government. Okay, but if you're trying for forced migration studies, and it is a very trending discipline across the world now, because a huge number of people will become refugees in the coming time, whether with political violence or with climate crisis or whatever, and there is a need for their protection and rights that are to be observed, and the way international treaties have to behave in order to accommodate those people, right? So there are spaces in rehabilitation of those people. There are spaces in how refugee camps are operated. Okay, so your policy making does not just have to be at the government level. You can also do it with organizations who work on things like this. Okay, simple thing as sanitation and refugee camps. You don't know how important that is and how pivotal it is for security of women who stay in those camps, right? And they will employ professionals in order to ensure that those are structured properly. So with your education, with your degree, with your knowledge of humanitarian law, like, I think you'll be very well equipped to do things like that, right? But if you're interested in forced migration studies, definitely look at Calcutta Research Group. They are like one of the top here.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. My pleasure.
Thank you, Pranay. Thank you, Kusumika, for clarifying the queries. And I think the important take back which Kusumika highlights for all of us is that we cannot definitely wear blinkers while we are choosing a course. We have to have the understanding of a program in totality, like how Pranay asked about policy from Peace and Conflict Studies, and many of you, you have heard about the application of the course. Kusumika mentions that the cohort is derived from a diversified background of students. So it's so much about the motivation, the understanding of the application, and the key word for all of us, again from Kusumika's end, has been adaptability. So this truly sums our session up for the day and possibly for the year for all of you to understand. I would love to see if any of you have any further questions beyond the session. Feel free to reach out to Kusumika or to us for any support or help whatsoever. And yes, Happy New Year in advance 2022 to everyone. Sunaina wishes from her end. Sunaina, thanks for joining the session. I just saw your previous message, so we can all leave together, but come back in the new year. Come back in the new year with renewed hope, resolve, resilience, adaptability from Kusumika's vocab, and definitely consider Peace and Conflict Studies as, I would say, a critical tool, just not a course or a subject that one is pursuing, to make all of our lives better. I sincerely thank all of you to be part of this session today. Kusumika, thank you so much for.
Thank you. Nice to see everyone.
Yeah, for really being very clear about the prospects and understanding for everyone to realize it. And definitely we look forward to hosting more similar sessions, and we'll keep all of you posted with more plans. Do keep checking our social media pages for further workshops or sessions with Kusumika and also with more of our speakers. Do take a look at the certificate course of social research that Kusumika conducts every year. And you will find a lot of information of that on our social media pages. We'll also be doing like a throwback on how the year was, highlighting the certificate course for everyone to understand and take a look at. Thanks a lot, everyone.
Hello, everyone. I'll see you sometime. Good luck with your applications and bye.
Absolutely. Bye-bye. Take care. All the best.